Hey guys, this is Wuck. I wanted to do a video on crossover settings and sound settings. So you just bought yourself a kick-ass Pioneer receiver, and it's got all these settings, and you're like, man, I don't know what half of this stuff does. You got crossover settings, you got time alignment, you got all this stuff you've never seen before, right? So we're going to go over that, and primarily we're going to focus on crossover settings. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube that explain, how to adjust them, but they don't explain why to adjust them or what it does, I guess, when you do adjust them. So we're going to go over that, all right? So our sound settings, what we want to do generally is we want to get our high quality music, whether it be coming from you don't want to use the radio XM. It kind of transmits in low quality, so maybe connect to whatever Pandora or whatever you use, or use a CD primarily. That's going to be your best sound quality. But nevertheless, you're going to pick the genre that you generally listen to, and you're going to turn the volume up to a point where you generally listen to it. I listen to my music pretty loud. All right. And I generally listen to hard rock music. That's generally what I like to listen to. Some 90s alternatives in there as well, because, I'm a 90s kid. But nevertheless, that's what we're going to talk about, okay? So the first one is the EQ. All right. So your EQ is just that. It's complex because it shows all the hertz here. But you should have a general understanding. This is your bass side, this is your middle side, and this is your treble side, right? If you're confused, maybe just go to, I like powerful, like rock, and then I brought this down one, I think is all I did. Sounds pretty good, that's where I like it. All right, so let's say that's done. All right, the next thing you should probably do is go to your time alignment. All right, have a buddy help you out. What you want to do here is you want to measure, sorry for the movement, my hand starts to cramp, but what you want to do is have a buddy help you, and you're going to take a soft tape measure, like a Taylor tape measure, and you're going to measure the distance between your listening ear, sitting up straight like you're normally driving, to each speaker. All right? What this does is pretty neat. It's a really cool feature. You turn, as long as that's time alignment's on. Then what you can do is you got your listening position, and it's going to change. Let me go over here. I'm sorry. Okay, so it's going to change each speaker specifically for where you set it. If you have two people in the front, it's going to change it around. If you have all, it's going to change things around a bit. But nevertheless. So we've done our time alignment, right? Now we're going to put it in front left if you're in the States. Front right if you're in, Europe or something. But the next thing, once we get our time alignment done, we're going to focus on our fader and balancer. Put that where you like. I like mine at 4 to the rear, which is easy. That's pretty much on every radio known to man. Now, where it tends to get a little confusing is our crossover settings. You go to this, you're going to see lines and craziness if your low-pass filter and high-pass filters are set on. If they're not set to on, I highly recommend that you do turn them on, because again, we're looking for optimum sound quality, right? That's why we buy these things. We pay thousands of dollars for, speakers and head units and subs. We want it to sound good, but it can be confusing. You're talking about ohms and hertz and octaves, and there's a lot to it. So we're going to adjust our crossover settings. We're going to go to our sound bar, and we're going to turn our rear speaker off, and we're going to turn our subwoofer off, if you have one. All right, if you don't, I highly recommend that you do get one. We're going to go back into our sound settings, and we're going to go to our crossover. All right? Now it only shows one bar because only our front speakers are on. Now you're going to turn your music up to a point where you typically listen to it at a volume, right? And you're going to adjust this sucker. Ideally, what you want to do is, for sound quality, you want this bar as low as possible, and it can only go as 50 hertz. You want this bar as low as possible without getting distortion. And we all know what distortion is. That's if you're playing music too loud, it starts to get muffled and sounds really crappy, okay? If it's doing that, bring this bar up, okay? So this is our bass, this is our treble, low, high, right? We might have to bring it up. Now, I have Rockford Fosgate 6x8s in the doors with OEM tweeters in the top of the door. Okay. I listen to music pretty loud. Like I said, I listen to rock. I like mine to be at 63 hertz and a 12 decibel per octave drop. What that means is once it reaches 63 hertz, it's going to drop essentially, 12 decibels per octave past 60 hertz towards 50, right? If, we can increase this to 18 decibels or we can decrease it to minus 6 decibels. You just do what works for you. But the secret here to adjusting this is turning off the rear speakers, turning off the subwoofer, turning the volume up, getting high quality, coming from a CD or what have you, and just playing around with this thing. If you have OEM speakers, you're going to find you're going to need it at 80 hertz or 100 hertz because if you get too low, it's going to start distorting on you. Again, I personally like mine at 63 with a 12 decibel drop. Okay, we got the front done. Now we're going to go to the rear. So we're going to go back one. We're going to turn our rear speakers on, right? And then we're going to go back to our speaker level. What I like to do here is I adjust this to all, right? Or you can turn it to off. It doesn't really matter. But we're going to turn our front down as low as we can, which is minus 24 decibels, because you can't turn off the front speakers on the system that I know of. And then we're going to turn these up to 0 decibels, right? We're going to turn our rear speakers up to 0. All right. Once we get that done, then we're going to go back into our crossover settings and we're going to adjust the rear. And the reason for that is so you can primarily focus on listening to the rear speakers. All right. Now we're going to click on our rear speaker. Same principle applies here. We want this as low as possible for optimum sound quality without distortion. Maybe 50 hertz, you have super high quality speakers in the rear, some really nice 6x9s that are capable of playing low frequencies, and you start to get a little bit of distortion at 50 hertz, then what you can do is just change the slope to 18 decibels per octave, and you'll notice a difference. You really will. Again, I have a Rockford Fosgate 6x8s in the rear, but they're two-way speakers. I personally like mine at 80 hertz. Nope, I vapor locked it. 80 hertz at a 12 decibel drop. Cool? Now, we got our rear done. We're going to turn our subwoofer on. We're going to turn our rear speaker off. Now we're getting into low-pass filter settings on our crossover. We're going to go back to our crossover. And we're going to go to our subwoofer. See, we got LPF here, low pass filter. So this works exactly the same as high pass, but it's backwards, right? We want our subwoofer to play low frequencies, and as it starts to play high frequencies, you're going to get into, this muffly, distortion, buzzy, coming from your sub. So again, we're going to turn our music up, and it's going to sound a little weird because all you're going to hear is the low, the subwoofers, primarily, right? Oh, son of a gun. And we're gonna essentially try to get this as high as we can without getting that distortion. I can promise you at 200 and 100, it's gonna sound pretty crappy. Maybe even 80. It depends on the music you listen to as well. If you listen to R&B, this could be a little different. You can go up a little higher. If you listen to hard rock, 80 hertz at a minus 18 decibel per octave might be pretty good for you. But again, you're going to play around with it, and it's going to depend on the subwoofer. I happen to have a Pioneer 10-inch, 300-watt RMS, I think it's wired at 2-ohm speaker. So I personally like mine around 80 to 63 hertz at a 12 or 18 decibel drop, depending on the music that I'm listening to. Okay, the phase, that's a little more hard to explain. Just see what works for you and what you like to listen to. Or what sounds better, okay? So, pretty much, that's it. You got your crossover settings done. Now we're going to go back. We're going to turn our rear speakers on. We're going to turn our subwoofer on if it's not already. We're going to go to our speaker level. We're going to change our listening position to front left. We're going to put our subwoofer where I like it. I like it at 4. And then we're going to crank the music, and we're just going to enjoy the fruits of our labor, right? It's going to sound great. I promise you. It's going to sound great. But again, the secret here to adjusting the crossover settings is adjust each set of speakers separately from one another, right? By turning off the other speakers. You can mess around with this a bit. I find it's just, it's almost a little too much here. But if you're a music aficionado, hey, by all the power to you, right? So anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching the video. I really hope this helped you out on the sound settings for your Pioneer AVIC series. And this would apply to other head units as well. But, you know, I really hope it helps you out. If you guys have any questions, comments, just, you know, leave a comment. Ask me. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. And I appreciate you if you like the video. Thanks.